Hi, my name is Laura Miko. You might know me from Wearable Arts. I had the pleasure of being an artist for 10 years, putting in different submissions, and now I work for the Juneau Arts and Humanities Council. And I'm so excited to be here today to talk with some artists that we have worked with in the past and presently. And we're going to be talking about wearable arts. We're going to be talking about the process. We're going to be talking about inspiration. And if you've ever been interested in wearable arts, maybe this will get you excited to get involved next year. So today we have Teresa Busch and we have Dr. Amy Dressel. And then we also have Nakenna Kotlarov right here. Thank you all for joining. I know all of you from Wearable Arts, so this is a lot of fun for me. And I know Teresa and Amy have been in Wearable Arts for a long time, and Nakenna, she's catching up on your years. So why don't we go and have you each introduce yourself? We'll start with Teresa. Why don't you tell us your name, how long you participated in Wearable Arts with us?
I am Teresa Busch, and I was involved in Wearable Arts for 8 years. 8 wonderful years. They were amazing.
Oh, Nakenna?
Okay. Hello, I'm Nakenna, and I've participated in Wearable Arts for 5 years, so ever since I was 12.
And I'm Amy Dressel, and I have participated in Wearable Art for, this will be my 19th year this year, so.
She's not proud.
Yeah, no, it's been a wonderful 19 years. It's been a great experience in my life and definitely a highlight of my life.
I know that when I first saw Wearable Arts, it was in the Juneau Empire. After the Wearable Arts show, they always do this great spread of photos. And I remember looking at the photos and being like, I could do that. And that's the next year is when I started Wearable Arts, because I was like, I can't believe that this exists in this little town in Alaska. And it just inspired me seeing all these different pieces. I'd love to know how each one of you also got inspired and decided to try out Wearable Arts. How did you hear about it? How did you decide to make the plunge?
I also saw the pictures in the Juneau Empire, and then had a friend bring me the call for artists, the announcement. And I was always into making elaborate costumes for Halloween and throwing these big parties and kind of doing over the top outfits, and love mixed media art. So that was my first year was 2005 with Mother Nature Gone Wild. That was the first piece. Way fun.
How I first got into Wearable Arts was I was growing up, I was just always like super into fashion. So, and my mom had like gone to the Wearable Art show with her friends, like I think it was the year before I joined, and she like brought home all these like amazing pictures. So I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, I just loved fashion. So I wanted to join in on all the fun. So that's how I joined.
And I saw the very first Wearable Art show that was in the upstairs of the Rockwell. It was called the Elks Lodge right at that time. And it was just the big, huge room. And they had like on the floor, a teed off runway. And people had all kinds of different art. There was like face masks and some outfits and stuff. And I was like, this is so cool. I totally want to do this. And I had talked to some friends who had young kids at the time, and they said, we want to do one. So we created something for that next year because we thought, oh, that was super fun and so neat. So I was like really inspired by that and was like, that's cool. I want to do that.
So one of the most fun things about Wearable Arts is that we see all sorts of materials. We see things from traditional fabrics to very untraditional items that you may never think that you could wear. And I think all of us have used both fabrics and also very untraditional things. for people who haven't been to Wearable Arts, or maybe people who are thinking of like, well, I'd like to do it, but I don't know what I'd make anything out of. What are some of the materials you've used to create these pieces? What inspired you to use them? And then also, what were some of your most fun and frustrating materials? I know for me, my most fun material was paint chip cards, because I love color. It's so much fun. I love working with paper. It was the dream material for me. And I know my most frustrating was eggshells, and that was just disgusting. I would not wish that. No one else use that. It's gross. Teresa, how about you?
The first one was with plants. I did 130 live plants. So I've worked a lot with plants, with foliage, mosses, live flowers, things like that. But then I varied the materials. I like to mix it up some. So I got into metals with the dental wire. The brace yourself was all, Amy's laughing because it was kind of gross to some people. It was recycled braces, sterilized recycled braces, dental wire, pallet separators, crowns, all soldered together. That was the most tedious one. The most frustrating one, I think, was the mechanical one that pretty much crashed and burned on the runway. It just failed miserably. That was the one that my model, I have to say, was amazing because she just worked with it. It was a remote control piece that she was supposed to step out of, and it was supposed to leave the runway by itself. Everything went wrong with it, from smoking batteries to not working batteries to, yeah, that was a bad idea. Just, yeah, bad. My most favorite one was arranging Jordan, which was all flowers, and it smelled amazing. And the pyrotechniques that Jordan used, they actually worked. She threw flames. So yeah, that was one of my most favorite ones. But I like to do a lot of different kinds of things. I can be down in the barn. I live on a farm now, so I can be down in the barn and I look at the deer netting that keeps the deer from eating my raspberry, and I'm like, ooh, I could do a lot with that. So you have to look at things in a different way, in a different light, whether it's, pop bottle caps or deer mesh.
One of my favorite things you've done were the high heels out of the fake nails. That was fabulous. Nakenna, what about you?
Hello. The first year, what I did was I used makeup. I always thought there's so many like fun colors you can get from makeup packaging, and like just the colors of the makeup. So I did like a half and half piece where I used half of the makeup and then half was just like a normal dress. The next year was probably arguably the hardest because I was working with like coffee tins and metal, and I had to like bend the metal, and it was like really sharp, and I feel like I didn't think it through. We tried to put like stuff on the edges so it wouldn't be as sharp in some places, but it was definitely a challenge. The next year was I think it was super fun because it was the one with the crayons. And so I found this super cool trick where you put a crayon into a hot glue gun instead of like the glue, and then you use it just like it's a stick of hot glue to get that like stream effect. So just doing that was just so much fun, even though the whole house smelled like crayons for forever. But the next year I used wire, that was the one with the umbrella. I used wire and then also like different types of like plastic netting to try to create like kind of an undersea jellyfish kind of look. And I was working with all types of wire, like from like really like skinny wire to like super like thick like computer wire. So that was fun. And then the last year, what inspired me was, it was just like basically the whole, I mean, a lot of the wearable arts is just trying to reuse like recycled materials. And especially I thought like chip bags or something that would be really cool to use. So I took chip bags and I turned them inside out, and then I twisted them into like little silver roses. So I just wanted to, you know, create something like completely different. Like when you look at that dress, like you don't usually, like the first thought is not like, oh, that's chip bags. So that was kind of my go with that. And I feel like I accomplished that. So that was fun. Though that dress was like so loud. Everywhere I moved, it was just like the loudest thing.
It was so pretty. And it just, on the spotlights, it just glimmered. It was stunning.
Thanks.
Amy, you have quite a few dresses to talk about, or outfits.
Yeah, sometimes I don't remember all of them, but no, Nakenna is just right on there thinking about looking at something and being like, oh, it could totally do this, and like twist it around and make it not look like what it's supposed to look like. You know, sometimes some of the stuff you come to wearable art and you're like, wait, what is that made out of? Wait, how did that do that? You know, so it's pretty impressive. I think I too, over the years, have like looked at things and been like, that could be something for wearable art. I think I drive my mom nuts about saving things and being like, I'm going to use this for a wearable art someday. And she's like, why are we saving this? You know, so, but my very first one, I did save for a year the tops off of the immunization vials, because they're all different colors and different sizes. And that's what we made a mosaic out of. So that was pretty fun. I've done everything from sewing paper to stringing together film, which was my favorite. I'll talk about that in a second. And fabric, doing different types of fabric and doing different things, as well as, all kinds of different things. So my most frustrating, learning to sew the paper was really super frustrating, because it rips like crazy. And every time I'm like, why did I decide to do this? And trying to find what would help it be more stable. And then you'd get something and you think, okay, this looks really good. And all you have to do is just do one small turn and it's like ripped open. You're like, dang it, you know? So having to redo stuff all the time. The other thing that one was super frustrating was when I made a dress out of old Christmas trees and wreaths. The frame that I made for it was on chicken wire. So it was super heavy and I had to climb into it. And then on the first, I think it was the first rehearsal, a piece of the chicken wire broke and it just kind of went gouged right into my side and kind of basically speared me. So that was, so the whole rest of wearable art was sore because of that. I also hurt myself once in wearable art and broke my wrist falling off a stage. So yeah. But besides all that, I'd say my favorite would be the dress that I made the year that they stopped printing movies on film. And I was very bummed about that, because I love movies, I love film. And so I got a ton of extra film from the Goldtown Nickelodeon, and then made a dress out of that. That initially did light up the front, the top and the bottom. But of course, as Teresa hit on, electronics and wearable art always stink and never seem to work at the right time. I think Michelle is the only one that's ever had luck keeping electronics working during the show. So only the bottom lit up, but it was a beautiful dress. And I also spent about 2 months or 3 months making the music for it, because I took all the music from 70 years of music and then lines from movies, and then made my own soundtrack for that. So that was quite a complicated piece, but I think it turned out well. It was very beautiful, and it still makes me smile every time I see that. So, but yeah, looking at things differently and being like, oh, what could you do with this? How can they make this look different? Or how can I use this to kind of highlight something? That's oftentimes what my inspiration is for wearable art.
Yeah, that piece was stunning. And Amy has really used almost every material you could possibly think of. Something I heard from all of you while you were reminiscing about these past pieces were, and then this went wrong, or this didn't work out exactly the way I thought it was going to, or then when I got on stage, all this stuff, it it didn't work. And I think that's one of the great things about wearable arts too, is that it's the ultimate quest in problem solving. And you have to figure it out along the way. We have quite the production schedule. Not only are you in charge of making your piece, but then you have to do rehearsals, and then you do the test run on the runway. And there's all these different things. And while you're doing these things, you're starting to notice the kinks, maybe something that didn't work out exactly right. So I would like to ask all of you about how much time would you say you usually spend on the outfit, and then how much time at the end do you spend fixing the outfit?
Hundreds of hours. It seems like it's you never start later than September. If you do, you're kind of like sunk, and then no matter how many hours you put in on it, you get down to the last 48 and it's nonstop. You don't sleep. You're a total wreck when you walk into Centennial Hall, packing your suitcase with your pieces in bags, and then you're on pure adrenaline until it's over. But hundreds of hours, I think. I can't even calculate exactly how many. And even though like arranging Jordan was live flowers, and I still had to do the undergarment and make sure all of that was together, and the headpiece was shredded flax leaves, and those had to be shredded to where they were fine like threads, and then dried and dyed. So all of that is just time consuming. So you think, oh, well, it's live, and you put it together the night before, which is what happened. You basically have the shell, and then you put all of the flowers on, and each rose was taken apart piece by piece, and each petal was dipped in a floral fixative so that it's held its hydration. So yeah, hundreds of hours, I would say. And listening to Amy say that, you know, she took months to put together her music. And then arranging Jordan again, you hand over pyrotechniques to your model and say, can you make these work? And you hope that it does. And then they practice. So that's even more hours. And it was just, yeah, hundreds of hours.
How about you, Nakenna?
For me, it's just like, it's definitely that once you get there, like things kind of start falling apart. So you're always like, you always got to have that hot glue gun, and you're always like fighting people for outlets so you can glue something back on your dress. And I also remember, like, if another artist is like pieces, you know, all good and ready, like other artists will like go and help each other, just like fix their piece if something happens, which is also it's always really cool to see. I know I've like done that a couple times where I'm like helping people work on theirs. I remember the first time I remember like something kind of like going wrong was like with the crayon piece. I had like these crayon bracelets kind of deal. And me and my co-model at the time, we would like go backstage, and then we realized that there was a crayon missing. So somehow in the routine, it like must have flew into the audience. So now they have that crayon. And with I think just with like I felt like that also happened a lot with the one I made out of chip bags. All those roses would fall off, and then I'd have to re-glue it back on there, which was, and then I would like glue one on, and then I'd see another one. It was quite something.
Yeah, as Nakenna said, pieces will fall off, and at the end of Wearable Arts, when we're cleaning up, it's just like bits and pieces of every thing on the floor. It's kind of funny. Amy, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. That's totally, Nakenna, that happens all the time. And you find one, you think, I got it. Oh, no, next one. Oh, next one, that thing. So yeah, there are pieces left all over. Was it Jessica Sullivan one year made one that she could totally take apart and give pieces to people afterwards, as gifts, or she sold some too. So I thought that was amazing and smart. Let's see. I was listening to this and I totally forgot what was the question again.
Just about how much time you think you spend on a piece for an average year, and kind of that, no matter how much time you spend on it, how you deal with the pressure of making sure it works for game day.
Yeah. So for every piece that you see on the runway, right, they probably had 2 or 3, maybe even 5 different ones before sorry, the clock's going to go off. 2 or 3 or 5 before that were prototypes that didn't work. So you've had like a zillion other ones that have been put together and taken apart, put together, taken apart. So that's pretty common. I don't think I've ever started September, Teresa. I don't have that much time usually to kind of think about and do that. I'm usually a crunch person. So usually November, December, I start to crunch, and then I just really crunch for the next couple months like crazy. I think the film one was the only one that I actually started early enough because I knew I needed to do the music and had to figure out the programming and stuff like that. But during those couple of months, so most of December, January, and February, it's nonstop. I mean, people ask me to do stuff and they know that I'm going to say, I can't, I have to work on my wearable art. So it's pretty much nonstop working on wearable art for those couple of months. In a handful of times I've actually been done early, and what I've done is then just turned around and helped other people. So I've helped Lorelei, I helped Joni, I helped a lot of other people do theirs too. So that's the one great thing about the whole wearable art community, is that it is a community. It's like, I call it a family, as far as we all help each other out a lot. So, but tons of hours in the planning, and tons of hours in trying and redoing and undoing and trying again, and then cursing when it doesn't work and stuff like that too. Even once, the one that I made that was the human body parts, the night before, my mom and I were stuffing casing to make it look like guts, the night before for a good chunk of the hours of the night. And then the next day, the lung didn't work. So we had to figure out everything backstage again too. So, it's a constant redo, but lots of hours.
Yeah, something that you all talked about a little bit was a aspect of the performance. So let's just touch base on that a little bit. Wearable Arts is in a situation where you guys are just making a piece and then putting it on the runway. Not only are you spending a lot of time putting together each piece that you are having put down the runway, but that you're also spending time with production. And we have some wonderful people on staff who will help with that production. Everything from our director, Margot, she has a vision for the show, and she helps you through your music, and she helps you through your choreography. We usually have 1 or 2 dance or choreography teachers on scene to help us through what is the vision going to be, because you don't just walk. I don't think I've ever seen anyone just walk down the runway at Wearable Arts, at least not in Juneau. It is a performance. You are telling a story in that 2 minutes that you are on the runway. And then we also have our sound people who make sure that our music is good and cut correctly. And they work with you. I know Amy's one has had to work a lot with them because she always does custom music. She never picks a simple track. She always picks something special. So why don't we just mention maybe
and lighting and the lighting.
Oh, and lighting. Yeah, Mike, we have a great lighting person, and I know for a lot of people, lighting's a big thing, depending if their outfit has lights or no lights. Is it glow in the dark? Is it, all these different needs. So while we go, why don't we go through, start with Teresa, and then if you can think of anything that you thought the production really helped with your piece. You talked about your pyrotechnics, or how maybe you wanted your model to move to give a certain feeling, or a song that you picked. That would be a fun thing to hear about.
Everything that you mentioned, it plays a huge role on how the whole piece works out. I mean, there's not one person that is involved in the Wearable Arts production that doesn't contribute in some form. And like you said, from the lighting, there's always input with the lighting. They see things that you don't. So when your model is going down the runway, and you're focusing on your model and making sure that the piece that you've created doesn't knock her off stage, or she doesn't trip or get caught on the carpet, they're looking at how it's moving and how the lighting. And so they literally showcase everything. And the people with the music, they match it. I mean, they make the music comfortable for the model. I would never model my piece. I would walk through fire before I would get on that runway and model my own piece. And I just would not, I couldn't. So I ask these people to do something in most cases that they've never done before. And Kendra Lee was one that I'll never forget. She was modeling Brace Yourself, and she's about to go on the runway and her shoe was coming untied, and I had a glass of wine and she's the one that's walking down the runway with no wine. And I bent over to tie her shoe and I handed her my wine and her knees were knocking. They were just shaking so bad. And when I came back up to see if she's okay, the wine was gone. She had just downed the whole glass and she said, I think I'm going to be fine. And she got up there and she did something that, you know, she's kind of a quiet person and would have never ever imagined her doing that. I couldn't do it. She did. And they made her look amazing. They all assisted her and helped in every way. And she actually went down in front of Amy, and Amy was wearing a outfit made of X-ray stickers, I think. And I remember pulling those stickers out of that outfit at the end of Wearable Arts and sticking them in a scrapbook because I'm like, that's Amy's piece. It's everybody contributes to everybody. I think we all help each other. And it's like Amy said, we're a family, we're a community. And even though I'm not in Juneau anymore, I still feel like I'm a part of it.
Dude, we found a trash can at the end of this last one that had some of those X-ray stickers on it still on the inside. And I was lost it. I was like, oh my God, that's hilarious.
Wearable Arts is the glitter of Juneau. Nakenna, how about you? What's your experience with production?
Yeah, I think just the production people have just been incredibly helpful. Like I come in like basically for like maybe like the modeling thing where we like come in for rehearsal and I have like a basic idea of kind of what I want to do. And they just like make that come to life. They're just like have like all these like incredible ideas and it's just like a collaboration together. And I really appreciate that. And also just the people backstage who are always like keeping us on time and making sure we get on stage and off stage. Like a couple of times I wore like these huge go-go boots with like these giant heels on them. And like, I'm like in my like outfit and I can like hardly move. And those people are always there to help you make sure you can make it down those steps. And just I don't know, it just the lights and the music, it just, the sound system they have in that room is just makes everything just feel so alive. And it's just incredible.
I agree. Yeah. At the very beginning. So you know, what, 19 years ago, there was just people would come out with their art, walk the runway, they would do some music. So over the years, it has turned into more of a production, and it's been a lot of fun to kind of watch it morph and change, and to kind of see how things are different. But I agree. I think the whole thing comes together so nicely now. I have done it under, I don't know how many different directors and producers over the years. And I'm impressed with everybody with what they do, you know, as far as the way that they lead it and they change it and kind of their vision, including the stage being done by different people and different things done to the stage. The stage is really usually super impressive, and they always do different things to kind of match the theme, which is super fun. And then the music, Betsy does a great job with the music, and the whole team that does all the stuff at the stage, Kathleen and her crew, you know, kind of getting things put in place. And then they always problem solve too. Like, you know, some of the years they didn't have, like, say, like a wide enough ramp to get up, and people, you know, had to figure out, okay, how can I get up and down on that ramp, or what can we do different? And they've had to change things around just to fit pieces. And so they're just, everybody's been great about the production itself. I never look like it, but I'm usually backstage and completely nervous and a wreck beforehand, because I always get so nervous about doing it. And then I just look around and I talk to the people backstage and I get myself psyched up. And then before I know it, I'm all of a sudden like, wait, it's done. Oh man, you know, and it's like incredible how fast it goes. That's why I kind of enjoyed this year with the filming, because it was a little bit longer and you got to do things a couple of different times. And I felt like it was like, I felt a little bit more in the moment than all of a sudden like blank on the stage and then I blink and it's done. So even though this year's it still was a lot of fun, and a lot of, it was a great time to do, you know, as far as the filming and stuff too. What else was I going to say about production? Oh, my dog is knocking my thing. Sorry. Let's see what else about production. Oh, I've had, over the years, I've done majority of my pieces. I've modeled them myself, but I have included other people about 3 or 4 different times. One time I had 4 young girls modeling. It was like all the leftover programs and pieces from the Jack production of Nutcracker, and that was super fun. But it's super stressful too to have young kids, because the way usually the show goes, it's late at night, and the rehearsals, they kind of get tired and they just don't want to be there anymore. So it's been kind of hard to include super young kids in it, but people, you know, have found ways to do it too. And I'm trying to think what else I was going to talk about. I think that's about it. But as far as the team goes, it's been top notch. And like I said, production is a whole huge thing that you have to think about on top of just your wearable art piece itself. And it's nerve wracking, but it's always worth it at the end.
Yeah, I agree with you, Amy. It's, and all of you, it's this thing that all the pieces come together and you don't know how the pieces are going to come together. But once they come together, it's magical, and it's awesome. There's nothing quite like it. One thing I want to touch on that Teresa and Amy both mentioned was, let's talk models. Some of us would never, ever, ever, ever model our own pieces. Teresa, I'm with you. It's not for me. I would lose my mind. And then we have Nakenna. I think you've modeled all your pieces, if I'm correct.
All except one, which is my first one.
All except one. And then Amy, you've both modeled your pieces and you've had people model your pieces. So my question is, if you are a person who models your artwork, talk a little bit about how it feels to walk down the runway. I think that's maybe something that people can't fathom doing, because Centennial Hall is packed, ladies and gentlemen. This is like the event of the year and people show up. How does it feel to walk down the runway? What's that process like? And then if you're like Teresa and I, how does it feel to watch someone perform your piece down the runway? I know I have a few friends that find me almost every year and they take the same picture of me. I'm always in the back like this, watching. And it's a lot of emotions all at once, and it's only 2 minutes, but it's a lot. So I'd love to hear from everybody else, their experience.
It is very emotional seeing something that you've created actually go down a runway and have the response of the audience, give you feedback instantaneously. The piece that came to mind that I was backstage just going over was Pieces of Peace. It was bark chips that I sent in packages around the world. And I asked people in all of these different countries, friends of friends, relatives, to write words of hope, love, or peace on these bark chips and send it back. And I created this piece. Most of the pieces came back about peace. And so that's how I named it Pieces of Peace. So Kendra was my model again that year, and she walked down the runway to War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. And she got a standing ovation. That's never happened before to me. And for her to get literally the crowd just stand up, and she got teary-eyed and I got teary-eyed, and it was great feedback. And she had a wonderful experience. I had a wonderful time watching it. But again, I'm glad she was on stage and I wasn't. I would not do that. Couldn't pay me to.
Yeah, you're right about the teary-eyed. I'll watch old Wearable Arts DVDs while I'm working on Wearable Arts, and I'll just cry the whole time because I remember all the pieces and all the people. How about you, Nakenna?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like modeling has been like oh my goodness, my family, they're making noises. Anyway, okay, I feel like modeling has been a journey for me because I modeled my first piece when I was about 13. And I feel like I was like really scared that year. I mean, like it was something I'd never done before. And I got the confidence to do it. And then I did it. And I felt like really awesome after. So just like each year has been like an experience for me because I feel like I've been like becoming more confident and just like trying more things and like trying a more elaborate routine or trying something like different or more like, like a more elaborate routine. And I just love the reaction from the audience. Just everyone is just like super happy all the time, especially on Saturday night. And they're all just like all cheers and just, it's just an incredible experience. Like my last piece, I was like, I had to be like, straight face, no smiling, because I was kind of like doing a robot thing. It was hard to not smile because everyone was just so happy and like cheering. Oh my gosh, it's just so much fun. So exciting. And also I just want to like shout out like how people were like super like supportive of like, people like going up there, like if you were scared, or like just other artists were all just like, you got this. And just that amazing support that they gave just really helped me.
Yeah, there's always, whenever the artist comes back from the runway and they have to walk all the way back in the Centennial thing back to the dressing rooms, you always get a big cheer from your fellow artists and models when you come back. So it is a really good feeling. Amy, how about you?
I was going to say, I totally remember that first year, Nakenna, when you got off the stage, you were like, I did it. And we were all like, oh, man, it was so cute. I totally remember that. And like, just, we all laughed and like gave you hugs and we're like all proud of you. So that was pretty impressive. I totally remember that. So I have done it from both ends, right? That I've sat and watched my piece from the audience and been like, oh my God, they did good, type of thing, as well as have to work to psych myself up backstage to get on. And so I usually used to be into acting when I was younger. So I used that kind of acting to kind of psych myself up and say, okay, you're going to be this character. You're going to do this. 2 years ago, when I did mine in drag, I actually spent a long time learning on how to like change my walk to like walk like a guy and kind of like do something different. So that one was like, I totally got into a character, but I had to like psych myself up for that too. And kind of tell myself, okay, don't sound like your girl. Don't put your head on your hips, do this, type of thing. But I agree with Nakenna too. Sometimes, you get so jittery beforehand, but the performance part, everybody backstage helps you out. And you get on the stage and that roar of the audience, every year there's just a huge scream and roar, and it just kind of like psychs you out and spurs you on, and it's a good feeling. So yeah, I've done both ends and kind of done that and enjoyed both parts too as well. So
I love it. Oh, getting emotional just hearing about this. One fun thing that I'd like to talk about is our creating space. I know we all have families or friends that we live with or partners that we live with, and wearable arts can be quite an interesting time in the household while you're creating. It starts off, I know every year I say, I'm going to contain it. This is where I'm going to keep it. I have a plan. It's contained this year. And every year I get a big eye roll from whoever I'm like living with at the time. And it never stays contained. And then somehow after Christmas, I'm still finding pieces of wearable arts. Like I'm not talking about the Christmas that happened while I'm working on it. I'm talking about like the next year. I'm still finding little pieces. I think the last time I did wearable arts was 3 years ago, and I just moved and I found pieces from my last dress while I was moving stuff. So it's a thing, and I'm sure we all have a little bit of the sacrifice our houses or our spaces go through while we create. Does anyone want to talk about that?
Oh, I have to say, if my husband earned sainthood for the 8 years that we lived on the water there in Juneau, and I always wanted to just like work in front of one of the big windows. So it was like the living room became my art studio. And he was so good about it. He was always so encouraging and just never complained. And, whether it was picking feathers out of whatever, his food, or finding them strewn wherever. Yeah, he was really great about it. And Juneau just inspires. It whether you're walking to your car to go to work, you get inspired by your surroundings. So that was one of the reasons of just setting up where I set up in order to create my pieces. And yeah, I was always I'm still finding pieces. I've been in Oregon for 5 years, and I'm finding things that I'm like, oh yeah, oh wait, that was from that piece of art. Yeah, you'll find them forever, which is great. I hope I have anyway a little chest of broken pieces from Wearable Arts. I did burn pieces of piece. I had a bonfire and I sat it on it. I had to do it when I was moving, and it was kind of therapeutic. So yeah. And I have some of them on the wall in the other room, which is Rick created nice little shelves for the shoes. I keep the shoes. So
shrine.
Yeah. Yeah, my wearable art shrine is on these giant walls in there. Had to fill them up. But yeah, your creating space can be tortured as well. So
Nakenna, how does your family deal with it? Deal with the chaos?
I think my mom really had a hard time with it because she was so, she's a very organized person. I feel like it would always, like, each year I'd get ready and it would start in my room, and then as it got bigger and bigger and I didn't have any space for it in my room, it would go to the kitchen. and just basically like the kitchen table, because there's a huge table. But it was always hard for like when we'd have to eat, so we'd always have to move it off so we could have dinner. I just was like, oh, what was really the hardest year probably with the workspace was that giant umbrella, because I mean, I think for that piece, it was so big, I had to work on it in the garage. I mean, it started in the kitchen, but eventually had to go to the garage. It was so big. And just like storing like your pieces after it's over, it's just like, where am I gonna put this? Because you spend so much time on it. For me, I like don't want to get rid of it because I'm like, so many hours I put into it. But then it's like, I don't know what to do with it. And like, so my umbrella is just, it was in the garage and then it was outside in the shed. And I'm not sure I know where it is now. Somewhere in my house. It just takes up a lot of space. And I don't know. I should probably, I don't know what I should do with some of that stuff, because it's like becoming like so, like it's taking up so much space. I should probably figure something out.
You'll figure it out, Nakenna. I have faith in you. Amy, 19 years.
Oh yeah, right. So my mom, and when my mom moved up here, she instituted a rule of only 2 pieces of wearable art to be kept in the house, and so the rest of it had to go somewhere else, or had to be, some of it was like easy to be like, I'm annoyed with this, I'm destroying it right afterwards. There's some of my wearable art all over the place. There's one, if you ever go to the Gold Town Nickelodeon, that one's up. Lisa Murkowski still has some of my wearable art because I gave it to her. That was made out of stickers from her campaigns and stuff. So it's all over the place. I usually do take over every, spot. Usually it starts in the kitchen table and then it morphs to like either the living room, sometimes in the basement. When I was sewing, the whole basement was just basically a whole entire room of paper and sewing material and stuff like that too. And sometimes even it morphs down to my office, that my office big, I take over the conference room and that gets spread out there too. So my favorite wearable art quote though was the year that I made things out of everything having to do with baby and every form of baby protection. My mom came home and the condoms that my friend had used, they were old condoms, but she gave them to me to use. And they were unfortunately all lubricated. So I had to wash them all and then hang them all over the basement to dry them. And she was like, oh my God. And she had to tell the renters, don't freak out when you go into the basement. And then she was like, when are all these condoms going to be off the kitchen table? So that's a great memory and quote. But yeah, it does unfortunately take over a lot of space, and it kind of gets all over everything. And then you have to figure out, years from now, you're like, what is this stain on the table? Oh, I know what that's from, and stuff. So, but yeah, unfortunately it does kind of take over everything for a while. So you have to explain to people too, oh, just ignore, the baby bonnets all over the table or whatever, when they come over, during January.
Yeah. And if anyone's thinking about making wearable arts, but they're like, oh, I have a really small apartment, so I don't know if I'm able to create, because it sounds like you need a lot of space. What I've learned is you will take up as much space as you have, but you don't need a ton of space. I think my second wearable arts piece in a sailboat, and I taped pillows to the inside mast to be my dress form. And it was not a big boat, but I made it work. One more question.
And I was going to say that really fast when you were talking about the model stuff too. That's the reason I've actually mostly been my model, because, it's hard for me to find time to find other people to do it. And, to be like, to find a dress form that I'm going to leave up somewhere. So it's easier for me to put it on. It's like, oh, this doesn't quite fit, and take it off and redo it. So actually I've done my own modeling because I'm lazy is really what it turns out to be.
That's a good tip though. That's a good tip. And you save some money. You didn't have to buy a dress form. I'm going to ask you all one more question before we wrap up tonight. I see it's very apparent that wearable arts not just the process of creating it, not just the people we meet, not just the production of it or seeing the community come out to it. The whole thing, wearable arts, is this very impactful thing on our lives, and it has been part of who we are. So I know there's a lot of people every year. I have friends, I have people who I hear in the lobby go, oh, I'd love to do wearable arts one year. One year I'm going to do wearable arts. Oh, I have this great idea. I just need to figure it out. What would you tell someone who might be watching this and they always wanted to participate, but they might be hesitant to jump in? What advice would you give them? What would you tell them to push them off that ledge?
I just do it. If you have an interest, the slightest bit of interest, there are so many people out there that are involved in it. They're willing to give you their time and energy to keep you going, to help you achieve your goal. And it doesn't matter. There are no losers in the wearable arts. If you participate, you only gain things from it. And you gain friends, you gain a family, you gain experience. There's so many experiences that you get from doing this show, whether it's art techniques or inspired by the youngest model of the youngest models, the youngest creators. No matter what, just do it. Just make that effort, make that first step, just take that leap, all of those cliches, and find someone, touch base with you, Lorelei, and that will get your foot in the door, and just have fun with it. Don't make it serious. As much as we say we go crazy and we devote all of this time and energy and effort into it, it's the most fun you can ever imagine having.
Yeah, and it's a great way to spend your winter months too, because we usually get started in the winter and when it's starting to get dark and gross out. So it's really good. Nakenna, what do you think?
I would say that just, yeah, again, like it's probably like the highlight of my year. And I think that it is that for a lot of people. It's just something fun to do. And a big part of wearable arts is I just love seeing people's creativity. So I think the more people do it, I think people should just share that creative side of them, because we all want to see it. Just seeing someone's like creative like idea is just so incredible. Like each person is so unique and they all have like something super important to share. And I love seeing that. And it's just the more the merrier. I love meeting new people, and I just spending time learning about like their art, their process. I just think people should, totally do it. Join in on the wearable arts fun, because there's nothing quite like it, It's amazing and magical.
I agree 100%, Nakenna. I agree. I've had people over the years always say the same thing to me, Lorelei, saying like, I kind of want to do it, but I'm like scared. And I'm like, just do it. The Arts Council has made it a lot more friendly. As far as the last few years, they've even had a couple things like where we get together and you can put a question out saying like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, but I'm not sure like how to make a support, and the other people will kind of say like, oh, this is how I did it. Or, Michelle Morris will say, oh, you can get this from, the hardware store and this works really well, so as far as if you have an idea and you think about it and you're not sure, talk to us. You can contact the Arts Council. They'll give you people's names and numbers. I mean, you can contact people like on Facebook. I get, people, I've had friends over the years saying like, hey, I want to do this. What do you think? And I'm like, yeah, go for it. We can help you. We can problem solve it. I've had a few friends actually join wearable art and do it too as well. And I agree also with McKenna's thing, talking about like seeing other people's art. It's amazing, right? You have everything from our friend Kathleen, who weaves every year. So I get to see a new weaving and see how she came up with stuff. Bobby does beads every year. So it's like fun to see like what new things she's done with the beads and how different they look. But all the different materials and all the different thought process that went in and the different types of art, it's amazing, So I say, go for it. And if you start it and you feel like it's too overwhelming and it's too much, that's okay. But I think just starting it and then using your creativity to kind of push yourself forward and kind of grow is amazing. And I think it's a great thing. And like Nakenna said, there's nothing else like it. It's pretty impressive. And it's a neat, not only family and friends, but it's just a neat process. And it's super fun. And I agree, a highlight of the year. Every year look forward to it, and it's used to be like, oh my gosh, I got to start my wearable art. But now it's like, yay, I get to start my wearable art, And so it's super amazing. And over the years, my friend, Nick Dehart has helped me with mine. And so I look forward to that time that we get together, and it's our time, that we get to be together and work on stuff and bounce things off each other. And so, you can find someone who helps you. I know Nakenna's had the same thing too. She's done it with people, and done worked with people and kind of done stuff. And so it's super fun. I would support. I've also wanted all these years to do one Wearable Arts Junior and get kids involved and kind of, do stuff. I know they do like trash and fashion and stuff like that too. So just let your creative juices flow and you can do it.
Yeah.
Nakenna's word magical was perfect.
Yeah.
It's magical.
It's magical.
That's great.
It's crazy, but it's magical. I just want to take time to say thank you to each one of you for participating in this. This is our Wearable Art Festival. It's 2 weeks of Wearable Arts madness because we can't have our in-person show, which we've talked a lot about, but I'm also grateful that Amy touched a little bit about this year's process and how it's been great. And probably in the future, there's going to be a little bit of a meld of the two. So it's going to be really exciting to see how Wearable Arts continues to grow and change and evolve, and also to see how all of you continue to grow, change, and evolve with your designs. And just thank you so much. This has been probably the highlight of my month. It was just so wonderful talking to all of you. And I'd like to say thank you to anyone who is watching this tonight. And if you are interested in joining Wearable Arts and becoming one of our fabulous artists or models, we're always looking for models, let us know. And we're happy to give you all the information you could possibly want. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Lorelei. And don't forget, Juno does actually have someone that's gone on to the international stage, right? And we have someone who's won in the international. So, we're world known now, for wearable art. It started off in this little thing and look at how it's blossomed and grown. And now it includes the whole world. So, shout out to all of you that have done it in the past and are going to do it in the future.
Yes. I'll be back, ladies.
And thanks to the Jack.
Oh, thanks, Amy. Thank you, guys.